I've got my blender out in my Easy Bake Oven, which can only mean one thing. That's right, we're gonna be playing around some more with your 3D printer poop. I have way too much of this stuff. Now, most 3D printers these days produce what a lot of folks refer to as filament poop, where it purges some filament at the very beginning of the print job or at the very end, or maybe you have a multicolor 3D printer and it's producing a lot of this filament waste. Well, in previous videos, I've shown you how you can take a silicone mold and your 3D printed poop and melt that down with one of these toaster ovens to create some absolutely incredible looking art. And I've even shown you how you can make your own custom mold boxes using a 3D printer so that you can make your own really uniquely melted designs. And today I want to experiment even further with the use of these 3D printed scraps, whether it's your failed prints or support material or your 3D printed poop. And what I love about this first one is that it doesn't require any kind of heating unit or blending or anything crazy like that. You're just gonna take your 3D printed scraps and insert it directly into some of these 3D models that you can find online. And in this case, it's a cat model that has a really cool Voronoi pattern applied to it, and it allows you to pause the print before it completely seals up and insert a whole bunch of your filament scrap in there, and then resume the print to complete it to have it fully enclosed. If you're interested in creating your own type of design by this, Andrew Sink has a video that perfectly walks you through taking your own design and creating the same type of pattern for your own model. Now, also, if you end up having some bits that are sticking out, you can just clip off any stringing or excess that are popping out of the openings of the print. But I think this is just an incredible way to turn your waste into a really cool art piece, especially if you're designing your own files. This would be a really option to supplement some of the designs that you're creating. And Easter's right around the corner, so why not print a translucent egg using some clear filament and drop in some of this poop directly into the eggs. This is, again, a great creative option, especially if you have kids or you're planning on doing any kind of Easter egg hunt, just for something a little bit different. Again, that's repurposing some of the scraps and waste that you're producing while you're creating your 3D prints. There's also this really amazing shadow box design file that you can find over on MakerWorld that has a whole bunch of different plate template options that are gonna allow you to create a framed display that you can then pour your poop directly into to create some kind of piece of art that you can then have displayed somewhere on your shelf or on your walls. And in this case, I'm using a Lego person, and they also created a little funnel to help you feed your filament poop directly into these shadow boxes. The only downside to this is you are gonna have to order some small acrylic panels that you can get off of Amazon in bulk. I think this was $10 and I got 10 of them here, and then I can insert them directly into the front of the display. Another really fun thing that you can do with these inserts is play around with your top and bottom patterns to come up with some unique designs depending on the particular print that you're printing for these displays. This also kind of reminds me of those kind of like wine cork bottle holder things that people like to collect, but you're doing it with your poop. The other really cool thing that you can play around with on these is, it's something that I've just recently started getting into with a lot of my prints, is on one of these boxes, I just used the standard sort of wall generation. And then on this one, I used a very light, and I mean very faint, fuzzy skin, and it perfectly hides any kind of layer lines that you might have on your prints. So this is a really fantastic option if you're trying to come up with a unique way to finish it and not have it look like it's an actual 3D print. The other great thing about the poop art option is you can use any mix and match of materials to fill this up. You don't have to worry about separating your PLA from your PETG to TPU, because in the original skull melting method, if you didn't have that correctly mixed and assorted, it wasn't gonna melt properly. Now, using a blender is a great way to take your filament scraps like your supports or failed 3D prints and blending them down into a little bit more manageable size. You might also wanna take some of your 3D printed purged material here and grind that down so it's a little bit more fine of a powder, and you don't want to necessarily run that all through your blender. Well, there is this great file that I found over on MakerWorld that is designed specifically for that, and all it's going to use is a 1/2-inch drill bit, and it will hopefully allow us to actually grind down some of this purge material into more bite-sized bits. Now, they do recommend printing this in something a little bit more durable, so I'm going to be printing this in Elegoo's ASA on the Centauri Carbon. and it turned out so good. Look how clean this print looks. All right, so I've got this bolted to my table, so hopefully this stays in place. Got my 1/2-inch drill bit, and I'm gonna put that in here. It's got 2 different caps here that you're gonna install that are pretty snug fit. Let's try this out and see how it goes. Oh, that actually worked. I can't believe how well that works. That actually is a really cool, easy to use design. I also want to mention that Elegoo is sponsoring today's video. They are the makers of the Centauri carbon that I'm using to print all of the different parts for the things that I'm working with in today's video. Not only does this also purge poop and cut it off in between print jobs, but it also prints incredibly well for the price point here at $300. This is a super budget-friendly Core XY 3D printer with a build volume of 256 by 256 by 256, and the prints look absolutely amazing. It's also gonna allow you to work with a variety of different materials. Elegoo has some incredible profiles that they've built out for this 3D printer that are gonna enable you to really easily work with all those different materials. I'll also be at Rapid TCT next Tuesday with Elegoo, checking out the reveal of their newest 3D printer, which I believe, based on the shape underneath that tarp, it looks like we might be seeing a multi-color system, which is perfect for this project that we're covering today. If you're interested in more information about any of Elegoo's products, you'll find links to those down below. Now, there was a reason why I wanted to break down the filament purge into smaller bite-sized bits, and it's because I wanted us to test out melting down the scraps, not inside of a little oven or toaster oven there, but using a heat gun. Now, I ended up buying a new heat gun off of Amazon. This one actually has a temperature control on the back that I can precisely set the temperature or increase it, decrease it as I'd like. It also has some different attachments on the top, which I'm hoping will help me redirect the heat into precise spots. All right, so let's pour a little bit of the scraps here into this. I don't want to fill it too much. Let's try heating them up. All right, let's pop it out and see how it looks. That is pretty good. That actually doesn't look half bad. The process took maybe 10 minutes to melt this down and continually press it in place. Having something like silicone tools would probably be helpful, but using the tip of the flush cutters really helped me mash in the filament as it was continuing to melt and really push and blend it together. And keep in mind, this took about, I don't know, 10 minutes to do. Something like this that I did in the oven, again, would still take around an hour or more of work to get it actually all fully melted and pressed together. Another 3D printed mold option that we can take a look at is this 3-part mold that is for a top that we can insert some of the heated up filament, press it together, and it should create a plastic top for us. And to make the top, they recommend having about 6 grams of purge material that you can melt down and then shove into the mold. Also, anytime that you're trying to melt plastic, please make sure that you're wearing an N95 mask or a respirator or have your windows open and fans running, all that good stuff. Okay, let's... Oh no, it wasn't hot enough. I just got the bottom part of the top, not the top of the top. I'll have to attempt this again. It's got to be really hot for it to be able to squish all the way through that. All right, second attempt. Oh my gosh, that is really in there. Okay, that is already looking significantly better. It's jammed up inside the mold. Yeah, unfortunately, I just cannot get the other half of the top. It seems like it's completely stuck inside the mold, but this definitely has potential. I saw other people posting that they've made these and it worked well, so it's definitely something to consider and try. I'd be interested in trying out some of the other mold options. The creator of this also has a dice mold and I think a few other options, like a brick mold would be kind of cool to see as well. This is just another fun use case option for your 3D printed poop. Now this last one is the one that I think I'm most excited to test out, and that's taking a silicone mold and putting some of our 3D printed poop inside of it and not melting it like we did previously inside of an oven. This time we're gonna take a 2-part epoxy and pour it directly into the mold with our filament scraps and see how it turns out. Now, unfortunately, my microphone cut out during this whole recording process. So I'll give you a little overview of what I'm doing. I'm just taking some of the poop and filling it up inside of a silicone poop mold that I got off of Amazon. And then I'm gonna mix up this 2-part epoxy. It's a part A and part B. I'm gonna measure each part out equally and then mix them thoroughly together. Now, to help reduce some of the air bubbles that can occur when working with resin, I have one of these air bubble removers that are specifically designed with resin, and I'm gonna run it through that and see how this turns out. And after 9 minutes of running, I'm still seeing a lot of micro bubbles, but hopefully it'll all settle out. Additionally, to help take care of any of the bubbles that I'm seeing on the very top, I can use a blowtorch to remove some of those. Now, I was also eager to see if I could 3D print my own flexible mold using TPU and then cast the resin directly into my TPU mold. So I used the Centauri Carbon with Elegoo's TPU, and I've got a little bit of string on there, which we can easily take care of, again, with that blowtorch. It's definitely not as smooth as that silicone cast rubber mold that I was previously working with, but we'll see how it turns out. And again, I'm just gonna follow the exact same process, but this time I'm gonna try out a different clear resin that I have. So I had a whole bunch of extra resin left over, so I decided to reuse the rubber skull mold that I had from previously and poured a whole bunch of the extra resin inside of some of the filament scraps, and then also tested out coating some of those with some different powdered pigments. I will say, after letting these cure overnight, they are definitely very clear on that top surface. Also, I think a good trick is to not overfill like I did here, because I have a whole bunch of the excess material sticking out from the back of the casts. All right, here is the silicone and resin. Oh, that looks pretty dang cool. Oh man, that is super cool. That is really dang cool. I'm gonna have to, maybe I can like shave off the back there so it's nice and flat, but that looks really dang cool. I am super happy with how that turned out. All right, here's the one that I was most nervous about. This is the TPU. Oh my God, the TPU mold. As expected, it's kind of stuck in there. Oh. Okay, not as good, but not bad. Look how comparable that is to each other. I am fairly impressed with how clear these turned out. Definitely the back sides are so much clearer than the fronts. I don't work enough with resin to know exactly why that is or how I could further improve that. Maybe polishing these might further enhance that. There's definitely little divots and pockets from the 3D print here, but it's a cool option for anybody that has access to TPU and wants to try printing your own molds. And then let's check out some of these here. I think this is the, oh, that's popping right out. These are, again, really fun, easy ways to deal with your filament scraps here. Yeah, and you can see that I used up a whole bunch of the little ground up ones. That, in the smaller, more shallow molds here, the ground up scraps like work so much better. Here's some that have a little bit of the glitter pigment on them. Yeah, here's a glitter pigment one. I don't know how well the glitter is going to show up on that. I would probably skip on the powdered pigments unless you've got a better strategy than what I used for this one here. It's kind of cool, but it definitely hides more of the filament that you could see clearly on the inside there. I 100% recommend trying the resin and poop option though. This is super cool. Super cool. Very happy with how this one turned out. Well, if anything, I'm hoping this video gave you some additional ideas of what you can potentially do with some of the waste that comes from your 3D printers, whether it's the purge material or failed 3D prints or your supports. You can try and turn that into some really cool 3D printed art. I also want to say a big thank you to all my Patreon supporters for your continued support. If you're interested in things like my 3D printer settings, you can find those over in my Patreon. And if you have any other tips or suggestions on how I can use this 3D printed waste, let me know in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching, y'all, and I'll see you next time. but now I'm kind of torn on what my favorite method is. The filament encased in resin is clearly an awesome option. However, I think the simplistic idea of just putting the poop inside of a display case here, like the shadow box, is such a simple, awesome idea.